one of the things that really struck me about the document that James Damore wrote was kind of the questioning of the assumption that everything should be 50-50, right? Which I think is a reasonable question to ask. And I saw one interview with him where he it was the David Pakman show, and David Pakman, he told him that women often have other options because they have both mathematical reasoning skills as well as verbal skills, and they have other options. And Pakman's response was, oh, so you think that men should be given special preference, right? Which I guess is kind of emblematic of a mentality of that equality is always the objective, that everything should be 50-50 in terms of group breakdown.
I don't even understand how, maybe James didn't word it very well, but I don't understand how David Pakman could have gotten there to that men deserve special treatment, when basically both men and women who have both high math and high verbal ability tend to not choose to go into STEM fields. They tend, because they have more options, they choose other things. They choose to go into psychology or business or whatever. They don't tend to go into particularly things like physics and mathematics and computer science and all of these really dry kind of fields, engineering and stuff like that. They don't. It's because I'm going to tell you a secret. Okay, most people find that shit boring. Okay, I find it excruciatingly boring myself, and my boyfriend works in those fields, and he tries to explain to me what he did today with this coding language or that coding library, and I'm just like, I don't want to hear it. Don't make me grab the nearest knife or pair of scissors and threaten to hurt myself if he doesn't stop talking, because it bores the crap out of me. Now, if I only had high math ability and I sucked at everything else, right, that would be my only option, really, realistically, to have any kind of decent income. Yeah. And this is across the board. Both men and women are much less likely to go into any of those fields if they also have high verbal ability. So, and it just happens to be that men outnumber women in that category of people with only high math ability and low to moderate verbal ability. So he's saying, so men deserve special treatment. No, what he's saying is these men are going into the only field that they possibly can succeed at. And the rest of the men and the women who are not situated in that way have better options, and they're opting for them. Right? It's not like they're being kept out. Like I just that these nerdy guys who can't string a sentence together in a social way, right? That they are being treated to special treatment, and that they're enjoying some kind of affirmative action because they lack verbal ability. No, it's just they're the only ones applying.
Yeah. Well, what James was saying was clear to me. And as I was listening to it, it was just striking to me that David Pakman saw this other thing that James wasn't saying. But I think it's not so much a psychopathy or anything like that. I think it's just a matter of that seeing the world differently. And when you're looking through a lens of I value equality over other things, then that's kind of the direction that you take this kind of thing. And what you're saying there too. I mean, I'm case in point of that. Right? I mean, of course, anecdotally, right? Just my story doesn't tell the whole story, but I'm a software engineer myself as well, and I have those same experiences of my wife asks me, well, what did you do today? And I'm like, well, do you want me to tell you, and it's going to bore you to death, or do you want me to tell you that I solved a couple problems and that's the extent of it, right? So I know exactly what that is. It's interesting too that my test scores throughout all of my history told me that I was good at both mathematical reasoning as well as verbal. But I didn't really believe that I was socially adept for a majority of my life. And I'm finding that as I kind of jumped into a podcasting journey and I started interviewing software developers for my other podcast, I'm starting to learn that, hey, you know what? I am technical and non-technical both, right? And for years, I've been telling myself that I'm good at machines, not good with humans. And that I became a software engineer with that attitude, I think is not at all surprising. And now that I have become a podcaster, and I'm finding that I really like conversing with people, and that there are some other doors, I'm kind of thinking that, well, you know what? I still like software a lot, but it may not be my ultimate career destination, and I have some other options now. And it's, I don't know what the future holds. I don't picture a day when I'm going to stop coding altogether, but I don't see it as, the most important thing in my career anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's, when you look at somebody like James Damore, because he's very careful in what he says, and he thinks, I mean, you can sort of almost see the gears turning in his head when you ask him a question, and he's attacking the question from a variety of angles, and then he kind of comes out with usually a very brief answer, because he's got all of that sort of classic sort of nerdy social awkwardness, doesn't like to be in the spotlight, all of those things. And I'm actually quite impressed with the caliber of his memo in terms of, his capability to write something like that. When I then look at how uncomfortable he is sometimes when he's being interviewed, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think he's gotten a lot better, right? I mean, you compare him with Stefan Molyneux to him with Dave Rubin, and he is a confident. I mean, the confidence is, the difference is,
it builds up.
Yeah.
It does. And, running a podcast, that'll help you hone those skills too, right? And 90% of your confidence is it's not necessarily based on your skill level. It's usually based on just getting comfortable with something. And that's usually what I tell people who are scared of, people who went at conferences that I go to or whatever. There was a panel discussion that I did just on Sunday where a 16-year-old girl was telling her story, and she's, I'm so nervous. And it's just like, you'll be fine. And then you do 3 more and it'll be old hat. You won't even blink. You won't get dry mouth, nothing. Right. You'll just be able to get up in front of a room full of people and tell your story. So,
yeah. So right. I want to find out more about you. Right? I've heard you mention in some of your videos, right, that I'm a waitress or something along those lines, right? You have this unpretentious air about you, and yet you are making these videos. You're interacting with some of the finest minds that I've come across, right? And it seems like that you have kind of this humble air about you. And one other thing too, right? I've been told by some folks that, I've never touched marijuana in my life, right? And the libertarian that I am, right? I'm all for legalization, and some people have told me that, well, that lends some credibility because it's not self-serving that you say this. It's it's that it's something for you. And I wonder about this interest that you have in men's issues. If there's it seems like there's probably some added credibility, being that you are not the victim of these things directly anyway. Can you just tell me a little bit about who are you and how did you get involved with all of this?
Well, I'm a university dropout. I cooked for a while, then I waited tables, stumbled across the men's movement, started reading, and I was always one of those people, like the reason I dropped out of university was the reason that I would have dropped out of high school if I had believed my parents wouldn't have murdered me and buried me in the, in the backyard. I just absolutely hated school, detested it. And but it wasn't anything to do with my abilities. I actually always got really good marks. I just couldn't stand it. And, so I went and I worked a regular job and got married and had kids and got divorced and stumbled on the men's movement sort of right in the midst of negotiating my divorce and dealing with all of that over the course of about 1.5 years, and started reading. And I had always been kind of one of these people who was like, these feminists are complete kooks. Like, how can they actually believe that that they're living in this world that they claim that we're all living in. Like, I don't understand how they believe that there is this patriarchy out there that subordinates women, when all politicians do, whether they're male or female, is pander to the female voter base. And when laws protect women, like domestic violence and sexual assault law only exist because of women victims and male perpetrators. I mean, if they were developed specifically to deal with male perpetrators and female victims, and they have become sexually gender neutral over time in terms of the statutes, but they still overwhelmingly focus on female victims and male perpetrators. So when you have this class of people that it gets extra protection, they get extra benefits from government, they get extra this, extra that, they're, and how can you argue that, because men are in charge, or the majority of people in charge are men, that women are not being looked after, when you have this massively powerful feminist lobby that's pushing through all of this legislation and policy and everything else? Like, I felt like they were living in upside down land, right? Yeah. And so the more I looked into it, and the more I realized just how far their hooks are into all of those things: legislation, policy, media, social work, right? Everything that affects people's lives and relationships, right? The moment I realized that, I was like, okay, yeah, I need to start really thinking about this. And when I met the guy that I'm with now, and part of the reason why I was so attracted to him was because of how he felt about his daughter, who he hasn't seen in, 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
And she's not biologically his. This is the thing, right? He raised her for 6 years from, toddler, not even a toddler, not even crawling yet. And then it was just like that easy for the mother of that child to say, yeah, you're never seeing her again. He has no legal recourse. The only legal recourse he has is, the 2 lawyers that he talked to. They said, if you don't have $20,000 of disposable income every single year to devote to this, you might as well not bother, because she has a free legal aid attorney as the custodial parent. And she will fight you every step of the way. And every time she denies, even if you get a court order for access, when she denies you access and you have to take it to court, all the judge is going to do is tell her to not do it again, right? And you're going to be back exactly where you were. And this is, like they said, this is not, if unless you're very financially well off, there's no point. And that's if you get a court order for access and any kind of paternal rights, which is no guarantee, despite the fact that, as having taken on the role of father in this girl's life, she could have come after him for child support, and she would have got it automatically because he took a fatherly role.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. In Alberta, all you need to do is live with a woman and her children for 6 months. And if you help them brush their teeth, read them bedtime stories, do any childcare whatsoever, you're on the hook for child support. If she
so both child support and no access, right? I mean, that combination, that seems.
Yeah, you don't get automatic rights, even as a biological father. If you are not in a common law or married relationship with the mother, you don't get automatic rights to your child. You get automatic child support, you get automatic responsibilities. But then you still have to apply in court for any kind of rights to guardianship, custody, visitation, access, any of that. So, and you have to do that at your own expense while you're paying child support. So, and she has a free attorney to fight you. So it's when I was looking at that and the way he felt about his daughter, right? And that was one of the things that really pulled me into a relationship with him. And I felt like, okay, now there's 2 of us again, and I'm not working 50, 60 hours a week. There's 2 of us earning. I can scale down my hours at work, and I can actually start writing about this online and all of this. And he was very supportive of me, suggested that I start a blog. stop just commenting on Reddit, go start a blog, suggested I start a YouTube channel, you know, did all of those things to help me, you know, all of the things people do, right? Oh, you need a webcam. Oh, you need this. Oh, you need that. Let me help you get all those things. And I just found that I was really good at it, at talking about these things and about understanding the male position. I think better than a lot of other people do. So it was just a natural thing for me to transition into doing it more and more. And then when he landed a really good job, I didn't even quit. I just, you know, I kept on saying, you know, remove me from these. Okay, 1 day a week. I'll stay 1 day a week waitressing. And then finally my boss phoned me, you know, a month after the last time I had worked. And she said, well, you know, Cassie forgot to put you on the schedule because she forgot that you even exist. And if you get a pink slip in the mail, it's not because I fired you. It's just because head office would have done that with you not being on the schedule for so long. And I said, well, you know, maybe it's just